Alright guys, it's Stephen here on BlueMoonRisingTV, and it's an absolutely massive game. Manchester City in first take on Spurs in second, the only two teams with unbeaten records. But before that, we're going to get onto our fantasy football team for the weekend with FanDuel. We are entering the £6,000 fan favourite, and this is our team we've gone for. We've gone for, as ever, goals, points, and hopefully we'll get our share of the money. Don't forget, you've got to be 18 plus and based in the UK to enter. This is the team I've gone for. Claudio Bravo in goal. I'm going to presume he'll see a lot of the ball, and you do get points for that for a keeper. In defence, James Collins, he seems to get points every week. No idea why, but he gets them, and he's only 7 million, so he is going in my team. Now, this is where you're going to hate me. I've gone for Eric Bailey. He's really cheap, and I put all the money on the forwards. I know he plays for United, but they've got Stoke at home, and I'm thinking that could be an easy game for them in terms of keeping a clean sheet. And alongside him, David Luiz, another cheap player, one who's probably due a good game since he re-signed for Chelsea, so he completes my back three. In midfield, it's all about goals for me. Raheem Sterling, he's on fire at the moment. He's a surefire bet for at least a point or two there. Alongside Capoue, who's had an incredible start to the season for Watford. Son as well at Tottenham. What I've done there is picked a player for Spurs, so if it doesn't go well for us, at least I've got some points coming in from that angle. And then Chadley at West Brom, who seems to have started life really, really well, the Hawthorns. Up front, it has to be Sergio Aguero. He obviously is the man in form these days. It wasn't at his very best versus Celtic, but he's always good for a goal or two. Slimani at Leicester, another very good signing for Claudio Ranieri, doing very well there. And Theo Walcott, he seems to be on fire as well at the moment. He tends to go up and down in these little patches of scoring goals and getting assists, and at the moment, he's in a bit of a purple patch. So he's made my team. That is my team. What do you make of it? Who have you got in your fantasy football team? Get a screenshot, get entering, and get challenges in the FanDuel League. But now, guys, it's time for the preview. There's no point glossing over it. This is an absolutely huge game for Manchester City. This is probably our biggest test of the season so far. I know we played some decent teams in Mönchengladbach and came out smelling the roses, and United too on paper, but this is by far the biggest game of the season as far as I'm concerned. Celtic away was very, very tiring. The players looked like they were running on empty at times, and that is going to be a consequence, I guess, of how we play. But this will be the one game where we see a true test of character. There's been other challenges so far, and they've answered them very well, but Celtic showed us something there in terms of fight and spirit that Spurs probably can match as well, but in terms of a higher technical level as well. So this is going to be very, very, very difficult. I'm a little bit concerned because I think the players' fitness is starting to show now. When we've got a style like this, there will be consequences in general. Pep does like to run his players a lot. He gets them really pressing from the front, and eventually that intensity will show somewhere. You saw people like Kolarov and Gundogan, and even Fernandinho to an extent, Sergio Silva, they were on the periphery at times against Celtic, and it was maybe a result of a very intense start to the season so far, and at some point we had to buckle a little bit under the expectation. So this is going to be very interesting to see how we cope with Spurs' really high pressing, intense game. And in general as well, Spurs' form is good. As I was saying at the start of the video, they're the only team in the Premier League alongside City that are unbeaten. They've won 4 and drawn 2. Though there are some question marks in the same way there are for City in terms of the quality of the opposition. They beat Palace, Stoke, Sunderland, Middlesbrough, but you would say traditionally they aren't very big teams. They aren't some of the top teams in the league. And when they went away in the Champions League to Monaco, they did lose that game 2-1. So they've got some question marks too about their overall game. They drew with Liverpool as well in the league, but now Manchester City for them is their one true test, and it's going to be very hard for us, I think, in general. I think Spurs will be up for it. I think Pochettino will get him really pressing from the front. They'll look to expose the passing game that we play at the back across the defence, and I think they have got the men to do that potentially. They haven't got Harry Kane, but we're going to have to be at our very, very best here. I think we're going to see a lot about this team and what it's made of at the moment. And sadly, it isn't made up of a few people like Kevin De Bruyne, Vincent Kompany. Fabian Delph, he's not around either. And he would be useful in a game like this, which is all about energy, pace and commitment. And that's what it's going to be. It's going to be a proper slugfest with two teams going at each other. Sadly, Yaya still isn't around either because he hasn't yet apologised according to Pep. So we do have already a relatively thinning squad. It does make me worry a little bit going forward if these injuries are going to toll up a little bit now, because when you look at the likes of Gundogan not being around, Kevin De Bruyne, you think Gundogan has to play. And he's coming back from a very, very big injury there. So there is a pressure on him to play quite a few games, and no one can sit in for him. So it's going to be a real test of the squad's character and strength. And we've just got to hope that no more injuries come from this, and we've got to hope that they're focused and not too tired after a very, very tiring, very epic midweek game at Celtic, which we absolutely loved. But for the players, that would have been quite a lot. And in general, Guardiola's teams do tend to pick up a few injuries. Fingers crossed it won't. We should be positive though in general, because at the moment we are playing good football. That was our first time we dropped any points all season. 10 wins and 1 draw. That is still a phenomenal start to the season. As Pep himself said as well, that's a good point against Celtic, because they are a team that can do very special things at Celtic Park. They beat Barcelona 2-1 a couple of years back as well. And it just, when the crowd get together, when everyone gets going, it can be a pretty special night there. So I'm not concerned at all about that draw, but I am a little bit, I'd say, cautious about this game in general, because Spurs are a team not to take lightly at the moment. But on to pick the team, I've gone through the 11, and this is what I've gone for so far. It's obviously going to be Claudio Bravo in goal, in my opinion. I think he's the surefire starter these days in between the sticks. At right back, I've gone for Bakary Sagna. I think Zabaleta, unfortunately, as much as I love him, he was a little bit exposed, and Moussa Dembele seemed to beat him more or less at ease against when we were playing Celtic. And I'm worried, you get Son up against him, he'd have a field day. So I've gone for Sagna, who's a little bit better in a one-on-one defending situation. And in defence, I put Stones back in alongside Otamendi. I thought Otamendi was a little bit poor, in my opinion, against Celtic. And I thought Kolarov maybe had the worst game of his career under Guardiola so far. He showed some of his frailties that would have been exposed by a team pressing, because he isn't, after all, a centre-back. So I'm expecting Otamendi and Stones to reunite their partnership there, and I've gone for Gael Clichy at left-back. I think he's due a game. I think we'll need his pace, his energy, and I think Kolarov, after a relatively shaky game, he's had a very good start to the season so far, but I think he's due maybe setting out a game there and going for a very solid defence, and that's what I've gone for. In midfield, it's kind of hard to see past Gundogan with Fernandinho and David Silva. Personally, if you ask me, I would actually rest Gundogan and go for Alex Garcia. I think we need to maybe not rush a player who's had that long out in general, but I don't think it'll happen. I think it will be Gundogan, though I think I'm a bit worried about his general fitness in overall. I know a lot of people saying he wasn't at his very best and maybe hasn't set the world alight yet, but you've got to consider he hasn't played a lot of football. And when you played so little football over the course of several months and in general had such a bad injury, and then you're thrown into a team that plays a very intense way in a new league with new people, in a new home as well, it's going to be very difficult for him to get going to the 100% of his ability straight away, but I'm not concerned. Some players, it takes a while to get going. Look at Aguero, for example. He tends to take 6 or 7 games to get back into his full stride. Never mind the fact that he's a new player to this league as well. But I think he'll start. And then up front, either side of Sergio, who will obviously start. I reckon it'll be Raheem Sterling, who's on fire at the moment. Nolito is still suspended for this. This is his 3rd domestic game, so he's out. So I actually think it'll be Jesus Navas on the right side, and Sterling, I think he'll start on the left. And I think he'll do all right there. It could be Leroy Sané, but I can see him doing that personally. But Blues, that is my team. I want to know, what is your team? Get in the comments. What do you make of this game? What are you expecting to see from Spurs and City? What team would you be? What team would you line up, not be in general? Drop a like on the video, subscribe, and we'll see you soon.